zoning information table, this is in the zone, Highland Lake District. It's a minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet. The existing lot size is 6,331. Proposed, we're not planning on doing any boundary changes, it remains the same. The minimum lot width is 150. Because this is a rear lot off of East Wakefield Boulevard, we measure the lot width parallel to the road, and on this lot, it comes out at 104 and a half feet. We're not doing anything to change the line, so that doesn't change. Minimum front yard is 50 feet. The existing front yard is 9.9. That is this dimension right here that we show to the corner of the existing house. And we're not planning on changing that. The new rebuild house will be the exact same distance away. The minimum side yard is 35 feet. The existing house on the west side, which is over here towards the right-of-way where the driveway is, that's presently 4.5 feet. That's the distance between the property boundary and the roof overhang. Harris plans on removing that roof overhang and squaring off the building. And that'll increase that distance from 4.5 to 5.4 because he's widening the building by an extra 2 feet, which brings it closer to this property line. So it doesn't automatically change to 9.3, which is what the distance was before to the house, without the overhang. On the east side of the house, we measure up to the existing house, where the part has a roof over it, and that was previously at 40.8 feet. Dimension is shown right here. But because Harris has elected to extend the roof over his deck, that now defines the deck as part of the main structure, and so he's reducing that distance to 29.9 feet, and that's why we're here. The minimum rear yard is 35 feet for that zoning area. The existing house was 23.1, and he's actually going to be just a little bit further, 21.4. Basically, we're saying no change there. The maximum building height is 30 feet allowed. His existing house, we had the surveyors, they shot the peak and they shot the eave, and we came up with 15.23 for existing building height. Harris would like to add another floor to it, and so we're bringing it into just under 30 feet. I'm not going to say this number because Mark challenged our building height calculations at the last meeting, and we redid them and submitted a new calculation. The reason our numbers were off was because we used the main section of the roof, and the dormers on the earlier plan went all the way up to the peak of the roof, and so we didn't start at the new defined bottom of the roof by where the dormers were. And so what we've done is we've gone back to the architect and had him redesign the dormers, lower the roof on it, so that the main peak, as we originally calculated it, still counts for your average building height. We got those calculations to Mark yesterday, and I'm hoping he's okay with it. For the purpose of this application, the existing house site's gonna be somewhere around 29.6. We're just gonna say it's just shy of 30, so we're not asking for a variance for building height. The other thing we're concerned with, as far as zoning regulations are concerned, is maximum impervious coverage. If any of you have been to the site, you've seeing that the site is almost entirely ledge. We did not count any of the ledge in our impervious calculations. What I've written in here is that we calculated for man-made only, it does not apply to natural ledge. So if the existing house, the sheds, and his walkways all came up to 14% impervious, what Harris would like to do is remove the shed, remove the walkways, and he's gonna replace one walkway with impervious pavers, which don't count against your impervious percentage. Over on the northwest side of the house, that'll bring you from the front door around to the stairs that he has put in to get up to the second level of the deck. So we are going to be increasing the impervious by increasing the house by 2 feet and covering the deck, which now counts as impervious, up to 17%. And we have our LID measures. One is the pervious pavers, the other is the rain garden down here, sized to capture the water quality volume from the site, mostly from the house. We'll tie the roof leaders into it. Because the site is all ledge, and this is something I explained during the Wetlands Commission, when we've been doing these rain gardens up here, the soil has always been so good around the lake. It's always been nice sandy soil, and we can count on the water just infiltrating down into the ground. But here, we might possibly be making a little swimming pool, so we put in an under drain, and we have it outletting to the riprap bank of the lake here, so we'll be protected from erosion. Wetlands is okay with that, we got our approval from them. So that's about everything Harris like to do. I think we submitted some pictures. Do you have a picture back?
Yes, that's the original pack.
That was in the original packet that handed out.
Just on the survey, Mike, I was just looking at it over here. Could you just, I'm a little bit confused. It says the Harris C. Daigle Revocable Trust and Robert and Jennifer Leach. Is that a piece of property that's owned by both of you, or?
Yes, yes. That has nothing to do with this project, though.
But you're essentially the adjoining neighbor, you and
Yes.
the Leaches.
The Leach, myself, and partners on that property.
Can you point us out the direction of the 2 feet expansion? I'm not
It's
seeing
to the
it.
north. If you follow my line, my finger here, that is the line of the existing house. All existing is in a shaded line type, so it looks gray. And the darker black line right above, that's the 2-foot expansion. Goes to the north.
So the 2-foot extension is inside where the stairs are? Are those stairs new? I'm just trying to picture it
The
here.
stairs are for the deck, they're part of the deck system.
Are they existing or are they being added?
The stairs that go on the side towards the parking lot, they're going to be added. But we have a balcony deck that's existing now. And so when the house pushes out 2 feet, it still hasn't reached the edge of the balcony. So there'll be a walkway alongside the house there.
So you're gonna square off where the roof overhang is on, I guess, what is the west side of the house, right? And then you're gonna expand it 2 feet pretty much north
Yes,
on the drawing.
yeah.
So the stairs and that walkway are currently not existing. They'll
They'll have to be rebuilt if they are there, because
No,
you're
they're
pushing
not.
things out.
Yeah, they're not. If you're talking about the coming alongside the house.
I'm talking about this piece directly right here.
Yeah, that will be built, that's
So
proposed.
that, they're not there now.
They're not there.
Okay.
What will remain are the steps from the lower deck down to ground level.
Yeah, I'm-
These shown here.
I think we're just trying to get a vision in terms of where the 2-foot expansion is, and is it inside of those stairs, or part of those stairs, or exactly what it is. But, so you're gonna be at 13.1 north, correct? Right now, you're 15 to that part of the house? Am I correct in reading that?
That 13.7 is to the existing deck. The proposed deck is in the darker line, and that's gonna change to 14.5 off the back property line. So he's gonna build it parallel to the property line, and 14.5 all through. Which is really, you know, we're calling it the deck, but it's the stairs coming down from the deck to the lower deck.
If you can imagine, if I can simplify it, it's going to be a deck over a deck.
That's why the
So the deck on the water side is going to remain with the deck over that, so that the distance to the property line is not going to change from that portion of the house.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a handle on what we're looking at here and what we're being asked, because I look at minimum rear yard 35, existing is 23.1, which what looks more like a side yard to me than it does the rear yard.
The lake, where you typically see it, is a rear yard.
Correct.
In this case, is a side yard.
Okay.
His frontage is actually East Wakefield, and there's a driveway that runs perpendicular off East Wakefield.
Thank you, my confusion.
It confused me too.
Just getting back to their survey, I'm a little bit confused with the property. I've been out there and looked at it a couple of times. And just looking from the lake, we have quite a few boat lifts there. Do you own both of these boat lifts, or is this part of Mr. Leach's property also?
I have a
survey.
boat lift, and I have a second boat lift, which is in front of my neighbor's property. And we went through some legal processes, so it's okay where it is there. So technically, I have one boat lift and a jet ski lift.
But on the survey, there's two of them over here. I'm just wondering, do you see there's two over there, so that's confusing to me.
One of those is in front of my neighbor's, so he took possession of that. So in other words, it's an agreement that it's in front of his property, he's okay with it. We signed some papers and it's been administered down public records.
Okay. Would it be possible just to come here, Mike? Is this his property line here? Is this on their survey?
That's just a mathematical line. The property line is along the shore of the lake.
Right,
This is
okay,
how the
I guess my
surveyor
question I'm
closes
trying
it.
to ask you is, how much of the waterfront does he own? Because we have a jet ski lift over here, a boat ski lift.
John, that's more of a wetlands
That's
matter.
what,
Yeah.
the commission has nothing to do with that.
I know, but what I'm trying to figure out is just how big his property is over here. So I just was wondering, does he own it from here to there, or is that?
So if you take a straight line between the two
Yes.
property points, it's 59, 51. That's the lakefront. Now, I've seen some surveyors go along and just measure all along the irregular border and come up with larger numbers. But my understanding is when you're doing this, you're looking perpendicular to the site. And
So that, where would that be on this, for the front, what would we call this, the north side?
That would be the east
the
side.
east side.
That would be the east side. Okay, and where would it be on the 59 feet, or?
Oh, that's not up in the table, because we weren't planning on doing anything, and it didn't fall under minimum lot width, or minimum,
It's the minimum side yard east lake setback, which is at 40.8. 40.8 was what it was, and the new one's 429.9.
we measured that
Okay,
right from the property pin there.
all right, thanks.
Any other questions?
And I just have a couple of more questions.
Okay.
How tall is the existing house now? The existing house, not the house there.
23.1 I'm sorry, that's the wrong number. 15.23, because it's just the,
And then how tall will this house be when?
well, he's adding an extra floor to it. Right. And so it'll be 29.2 feet. We're not asking for a variance for building height.
I know, but just where the location is, just by looking at it, when you drive by the piece of property, it's pretty high as it is now, and then after the new construction, it's probably gonna be 15 to 20 feet higher than, I would imagine. Is that correct?
I have consulted with all my neighbors.
Yes.
In your packets, I have 3 letters of support. Two of the neighbors are on the side of the extension. I have no, when I'm on my deck, I'm looking at people's rooftops.
Yes.
So I'm blocking no one's vision.
The property is situated, it won't be blocking any views of the lake from East Wakefield Boulevard either.
The only thing is sometimes it just worries me is that this makes some kind of a precedence on the lake and we'll be seeing more of this type of construction. And that's why it's before the zoning board.
Well, the way the zoning regulations are written, the only choice for anybody to expand the square footage is to go up.
I know that, that's correct.
Okay. Anything further?
No.
All right, then, if there is anyone from the public that would like to speak to this application, you can be recognized now. Okay, well, hearing none. The
Just-
last word. Oh.
Just for the record.
Oh, should we read
just-
into those letters?
Would you like to? The board was provided with them. There's 3 letters from,
To be read into the record? Yeah, we should do that. To whom it may concern, I am writing on behalf of Mr. Harris Daigle's building plans of his property at 304 East Wakefield Boulevard. We are his next-door neighbors who reside at 348 East Wakefield Boulevard. My family and I are in complete support of Mr. Harris Daigle's building plans to rebuild a bigger home here on the lake. We have no objections to any of his building plans, and we wish him the best of luck with this opportunity. Please feel free to contact me with any further questions you have. Signed, Jennifer Leach.
the address. if you
The address, 348 East Wakefield Boulevard. So, next letter is from John and Christine Sliney, or Slinney, at 308 East Wakefield Boulevard, to whom it may concern. We are writing this letter in support of Harris's building plan. As our neighbor for over 30 years, we have seen the care he has given his property and has shown nothing but respect for the lake. As a longtime resident, the lake seems always to be his priority. We are happy to hear of his plans to upgrade his residence, which should only add value and aesthetics to our little cove. Lastly, from Dr. Michael Moser, is it Moser or Mosur, or? Anyway, at residence, they're co-owners of the neighboring property at 306 East Wakefield Boulevard, and his official residence is 3012 German Street in Fairfield, California. Anyway, to whom it may concern, I fully support Mr. Harris Daigle's proposal to rebuild his existing cottage at 304 East Wakefield Boulevard as outlined in the above attachment. Granted, it meets existing town, county building surveillance codes and variances. My father, John Moser Sr., and I have been co-owners of the neighboring property at 306 East Wakefield Boulevard for over 30 years. Although I have lived out of state for years and visit the property on occasion, my father and Mr. Daigle have been cordial and supportive neighbors on the lake for a good number of years. We both share a common driveway to access our properties, as well as multiple other properties in our cove. As neighbors over the years, we have satisfactorily addressed multiple issues concerning both properties, most recently the removal of a hemlock tree bordering both of our properties along the waterfront. I know Mr. Harris Daigle to be a good, conscientious, and respectful neighbor and gladly re-endorse his proposal to rebuild. Feel free to contact me if you are in need of further assistance.
Thank you.
Okay. Then the last word is yours.
I need the space, for one big reason. When I purchased the cottage, I was 23 years old. Things were different. I've had it for 52 years. For some reason, I wound up with a lot of step-grandchildren and children. And the last two is 4 and 6 years old. And the problem with the property is in my hardship, is it was a granite quarry. Probably 80, 90, 100 years ago, I'm not sure. I know High Cottage is maybe 80, 90 years old. And the guys having lunch there threw out their glass, and there's bottles all over the place. And it's hard to keep a 4 and 6 year old on the patio area or on the dock. It's treacherous. As a matter of fact, I'm prepared.
I remember those images from the first time we were talking about this.
Let's see, I think I have 4 copies here. This is glass that I picked up. There you go. And I will show you how old it's worth. This is 1 week's worth. And this,
But you mentioned how long have you had the cottage,
52 years.
and you haven't picked glass up since then?
I pick it up every week.
Yes.
This is 1 week's worth.
Okay.
It's like
Right.
rocks in your lawn, they
Yep.
keep breaking.
Yeah. The bottles on the shelves there were the ones that were not broken, and I kept it.
All right.
Plus the old Pal bottle,
For
which
the
you remember. So, in essence, that's basically my biggest hardship. And at least with a bigger facility or a bigger place, I could say, you know, stay inside, go into the spare room, and you know what I mean? It's a safety concern. So it definitely would improve my quality of life and also the kids. Have any questions I can answer for you guys?
I think we finished those, I think, unless there's anything last minute. No? All right then, with that, I will close the public hearing on ZBA application 21-5263 for a variance application at 304 East Wakefield Boulevard. All right, can I trouble you to read the motion?
I'll be happy to. Motion to approve ZBA application 21-5263 from section II.G.B.II for a front yard setback variance of 40 feet, a rear yard setback variance of 20.5, a west side yard setback variance of 30 feet, an east side yard setback variance of 6.4 feet, and from section II.G.D.I for a height variance of 3 feet for the purposes of building a 22 by 35 three-story residence with a walkout basement and a 22 by 12.3 covered porch on the east side with a 4-foot by 17-foot landing and stairs and a 7-foot by 35-foot landings and stair on the rear of the house as per the drawings submitted for the property located at 304 East Wakefield Boulevard.
Is there a second?
Second.
Nope.
Yeah, just to let you know, that height variance is no longer with the new measurements.
Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
I just then make sure to
Should
change
we
that.
So do we need to amend that?
Modify that part of it?
Yeah, just,
So-
you can modify it just as.
Just
it is.
strike it?
Move that we strike the height variance for 3 feet?
Because we don't have the height
You
variance
agree to
any
that,
longer.
Aubrey?
Right.
I'll second it with that amendment.
Very good. All right, is there any discussion?
I think we should just discuss it a little bit.
Go
My
ahead.
biggest concern was, I went up there and looked at the property, and I have nothing against you, Mr. Daigle, but where that house is built, it probably was built, like you said, 90 years ago. And we're just going to be giving more more nonconformity to more nonconformity. I really can't see expanding a house up there, that's going to be towering at least 20 feet higher, and it's not gonna have a good effect on the lake. Regardless of what your neighbors think, that's fine, but I'm thinking about the whole lake in general. It's gonna stand out, and then we're gonna have more and more people doing this, and we have to consider the public who lives at the lake and the people who drive around the lake, and to me, I just can't see it.
Although respectfully, John, if he's below the height requirement
I
that
understand.
the ordinance allows us to do, then the height, you know, I'm more concerned about side yard setbacks and granting those, and that's a different topic. But in terms of the height, we have the 30-foot regulation, he's
Right,
coming
but
in
he's
below that.
already- I understand that. What I'm saying is he's already on top of a mountain already, he's on top of a quarry.
We cannot, I don't believe we can legally use that as a basis for approval or denial.
Correct. If he's within the zoning reg, we have to.
I understand that, he's gonna be under 30 feet.
He's doing a variance, everything's open,
Okay.
all right? It's not like it's not like he's going for zoning regs that allows you to do it. He does allow it by the regs, but going for a variance, your condition can be that it can
I
be it's too
understand.
high for
I
what.
see.
'Cause
Okay.
you're trying to do with the neighborhood and everything else and whatever,
Uh-huh.
so.
Because if you
But-
look at Wheeler's Point, there's another cottage there that was started, that was passed, and it's almost like a skyscraper, and we're gonna have quite a few skyscrapers around the lake if we just keep allowing this, and I have an issue with that.
Okay, well, respectfully, I understand that, but they've done their homework, they're within the regulations, and
Yes.
And, you know, the reason that 90% of the applications we get at our Highland Lake District is this is a very unusual zone, right?
Right.
I think the overwhelming majority of houses are non-conforming. So we have all of our homework to always do here, and the fact that going up is what most people are limited to doing, you're gonna see taller structures on the lake. And, you know, the height of the property is a consideration, John, but it's, within the reg, I think we have to focus more on, are we comfortable with the side yard setbacks? And is it gonna overall change the neighborhood? Is there a hardship?
Right.
I think that's what we need to really talk about. This is, you know, variances are more challenging for us. You know, the hardship for anybody, is trying to have enough room in their home.
families grow,
Yep.
and, you know, with the concern he has with the glass and all, I mean, I think he's stated his concern very well. I mean, I'm not, without going into detail.
All right. Well, I think we can call a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify.
Aye.
And opposed? And abstain. You have your project, sir.
Thank you. Can we throw this gas out now?
Yes.
One like that.
This is just
That goes with you. Reasonable request.
Reasonable request, thank you.
Copy of the variance. Where's that application?
For this application. Yeah. This is continued also. was.
This one wasn't opened.
This one wasn't open, but
Right.
is this the one that's?
No, because they
It
need
wasn't
wetlands
open
approval.
because it hadn't been reviewed
Right.
by wetlands yet.
Correct,
Right.
right, and she's,
Okay.
and you needed wetlands approval for a special permit application, and they've
Oh.
since received it.
Hey, very good. All right. So, taking up the variance application first, calling zoning board of appeals application 21-5266, a variance application for 534 Wheeler's Point in Winston.
Hi.
Hello.
Can I hand these out real quick? I think this gives people a visual, a picture. Is that possible? So the top is the actual home as is, the bottom is the proposed new deck.
Now, just for the record, she has a special permit application that precedes, or I'm sorry, the variance application precedes the special permit application. Are you requesting that they both be considered simultaneously?
Sure.
Okay.
But is
So-
this one of those situations?
So as she,
that you-
I would guess that as she explains her project, she's going to, the project is all encompassing, and then if you have any questions, staff can tell you what she needs a variance for and what
Alright.
can be approved through a special permit.
This way she doesn't have to go through the whole presentation again.
Yes, I understand. Okay, so let the record reflect that we are also hearing, excuse me, zoning board of appeals application 21-5267 special permit for 534 Wheeler's Point. And to be stodgy and nitpicky, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Hi, I'm Beth LaChance, LaChance, 534 Wheelers Point. So the project is, we have an existing lower deck that needs replacing, to say the least. So we're gonna be replacing the lower deck. However, we'd like to go up so that we have a second level to be able to walk out of the second floor. So the lower will be then screened in as a screen-in porch, and the upper will have a walkout to be able to enjoy the view of the lake from the upper level.
So no dimensional changes to the deck.
Correct, no dimensional changes to the deck as it's seen now, but we're going up only on the right side, where you see the rafters that, it almost looks like the house is not finished.
Right.
That wasn't the intention. I think the intention was that there was supposed to be vines and that sort of thing growing up and over. They never made it up that high. They're still crawling up the side of the house. So, anyhow, so the intention is to eliminate those rafters and have a very small dormer door to be able to walk out of the bedroom that's there and walk out onto the deck, so that we have a covered space below it that can be screened in.
So on your, on Mr. Takara's survey, the existing and proposed does show some changes to side and rear yard.
So I think that's up on the upper, we're doing a slight more overhang for for the rainage, so that therefore the lower level, when it rains or snows, it won't allow for that to come in, so I believe.
So it's that overhang, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I see this.
Mike, the reason the difference is because before it was a deck, so the decks have different side yards and they're a lot closer to property lines. Now with the second deck above it, it's no longer a deck, it's considered an addition. So the structure itself isn't getting bigger, but the way it is now, because it's not a deck, it's now considered an addition,
Okay.
that's what changes.
Got it.
And the same with the impervious surface.
Just that's just a technicality then, there's actually not really a change to the structure necessarily, it's just the way we look at it?
What is it? What's the question? It's because the deck is considered pervious by our zoning regulations. They're not counted in the impervious numbers. Once you
Put a
add a
roof
roof over it, it becomes,
But we're actually
impervious.
improving the impervious. Oh, the impervious is getting worse.
Yeah,
Yep, I
yeah,
got you. All
because
right,
of that.
Thank you.
And then, there's no other variance required, right? And a special permit is because, what's the special permit? Dormer. And a special permit is because of the dormer. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
bedroom access
Yes,
door.
because you know how like you can go up
Right.
to 30 feet to the midpoint of the roof with a special permit.
All right.
You have any other questions, John? No. Have any other questions?
I don't have any questions.
We have no direct questions for you, so we will open this to anyone in the audience who would care to speak to these applications. Excuse me. Hearing none, do you wish to add anything as a last word?
Well, I think that, it will balance off the house as it was finished. I had a couple of comments about the house when I bought it, that they're like, did they just not finish the roof? I'm like, no, that wasn't the intention, but I think that this will, for us personally, it will add more usable space. I have Lucas Street, my mother has Lucas Street, to be able to be, we cut the one tree down that's right there in front, and that didn't offer any shade anyhow, but we have very limited shade in the afternoon hours, so that will allow for some shade for me and my mother, and also be able to really enjoy that second floor that, off that bedroom has no view of the lake, so it will be a beautiful view from that second floor.
Very well. With that, I will close the public hearing on ZBA application 215266 and application 215267.
Motion to approve ZBA application number 21-5266 from section II.G.B.II for a west side yard setback variance of 20 feet, and from section II.G.B.II for a maximum impervious surface coverage of 18% for the purposes of adding a screened-in porch over an existing deck with a deck on top of the screened room as per the drawings submitted for the property located at 534 Wheeler's Point.
I will second that motion. Any discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That clears. All right.
So, oh no, not yet.
Say your second one.
Yeah, we have to.
Got it.
A motion to grant a special exception for application number 21-5267 to put a dormer on the rear of the house per the drawings submitted for the property located at 534 Wheeler's Point.
Is there a second, please? I'll second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? You have your project.
You signed, John?
Yeah.
No, yes.
All right. Oh. Yeah, John's gonna sign it. Here you go, sir. All right. Is Ms. Cirque's application continued?
Nope, he's here.
No, I mean, did we continue that from last time?
Yes, and it wasn't open, because, again, it was a special permit application that wetlands hadn't gotten to.
Okay, so.
And
we
they
don't-
have since received
But we
their
don't
wet-
have we don't have anything we don't need to reopen a hearing.
No.
We're de novo. Okay. So I will now call, please, Zoning Board of Appeals application 21-5268 for a special permit for 542 East Wakefield Boulevard. Good evening. Enter and sign in, please.
For the record, my name is Randy Cirque. I'm a stand-in for Joanne Cirque, my wife. The address is 542 East Wakefield Boulevard.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I remember. All right. So presuming you've been through wetlands,
Yes, we
and
have.
they're happy with you? More or less?
We've been going in front of them for about 3.5, 4 years, so
I understand.
we're getting through this, one step at a time.
All right.
Not to step on any more toes.
I understand. Can you explain your application? I think, I remember most of this, but if you can explain it again for the record?
We're looking to put up it's considered a PVC fence. It's a picket fence, and it's 4 feet high. It's going to extend 32 feet. And where the walkway is, there's going to be a gate, an entrance gate to go down into the lower section where the lake is. We did supply one picture, I'm not sure if we have it.
We have it.
The picture here actually is a stick and paste version of what the fence would more or less look like.
Oh, right, yes.
Did they still have the pictures that I left here? I think I left 3 of them here.
They would have gotten the pictures in their application, I don't remember what the application,
This is the other one, I think.
Yeah, I think you have
I
the
have-
application without the fence.
Well, but I remember seeing that image, so I just don't remember if it was in our,
It sort of gives you a visual of what's going on. It's not really impeding anybody's view. This is for a little bit of privacy down at the lower section, and it also keeps our dog and our grandkids under control.
So you're extending the same fence outward past the telephone pole, out into where the guardrail, I presume on the non-street side of the guardrail?
That is correct. In the revised May 5th, there is a revision that Peter Keith had done and it shows the location of that fence.
Yeah, so the existing one is here,
yeah.
up to the stairs, there's the telephone pole. so- Got it.
It's the same fence, the same company. It's going to be professionally installed by Cape Cod Fencing.
Seems very straightforward, yes?
Yeah, it's just that the zoning regulations dictate that any fence or wall within 20 feet of the lake can be granted by this group through a special permit application. And you would always check to make sure that the fence is semi-open,
Right.
like no stockade fences.
Right.
So in other words, this is appropriate to approve within the regs.
Yeah, yep. But this is the process and this is the board.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
No.
Would anyone from the public like to speak to this application? Hearing none? Anything to add?
No.
Very well. With that, we will close the public hearing on Zoning Board of Appeals application 215268.
And to make a motion to grant special permit for application number 21-5268 to install a 4-foot high by 8-foot long tall sections of vinyl picket fence, a fence on the property line per the drawing submitted for the property located at 542 East Wakefield Boulevard.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
1 second.
No?
All in favor?
Aye?
Mr. Dew?
Who voted?
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? You have your project.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
A much smoother
You too.
Well, bubbling right along. Good evening, gentlemen. If you can kindly introduce yourselves with name and address.
Good evening. I'm Attorney Patrick Power from the firm of Howard Finch and Winstead. This is Michael Lowe, the architect on the project. We also have with us one of the applicants, Patricia Burney, who has traveled here from California to attend this hearing, and his son Thomas Burney, who has traveled here from Denver, Colorado to attend the hearing. And we have Mark Beecher, the contractor on the project. And Dennis McMorrow is the engineer. I'd like to make some initial comments on the application to summarize the project and some of the history, and then I'll introduce various speakers who will provide more detail on the project. The application is submitted pursuant to section 3, subsections C and J of the zoning regulations. Subsection C governs non-conforming uses, subsection J governs special permits and special exceptions. The first floor of the building on Burney's property is a legal non-conforming structure that existed prior to the adoption of zoning regulations in Winchester.
Would it be just, do we have a microphone, or could he speak a little louder? Is that
I'll
possible?
try to speak a little louder.
Thank you.
The first floor of the building on the property is a legal non-conforming structure that existed prior to the adoption of zoning regulations in Winchester. Pursuant to section 3, subsection C of the regulations, such legally non-conforming structures may be continued in accordance with the provision of that regulation. So the location of the first floor of the Burney's structure is established by law to be legal in its present location. They actually have an absolute legal right to have the first floor in the location where it's located. Pursuant to permits that were issued by all proper town authorities, the first floor of the old structure has already been removed, and the part of the first floor, which will not have the second story, has already been Section 3, subsection C4 of the regulations states that a special exception, a non-conforming structure that contains a permitted use, may have a second floor added above the first floor, utilizing the same footprint, provided that the addition is within the maximum building height of the district, and in the case of residential structures, no additional family units can be created. Obviously, the requirement of utilizing the same footprint is based on the fact that the footprint of the first floor has already been established to be legally non-conforming. The Bernie's present application for a special exception simply seeks to add a 276 square foot partial second story to the rear portion of the legally non-conforming first floor, utilizing the same footprint. The partial second story will just add a bedroom and a bathroom on the second floor, while not creating additional family unit. And the maximum height of the entire building with the partial second story added will be well below the maximum building height allowed in the L zone. And yet, I can't emphasize enough that the Birdies do not need a special exception for the location of the first floor of the building. They just need a special exception to add the second story. The Bernie family has owned the property for decades, and one of the current owners, Robert Bernie, is 82 years old and he's from Fort Allen. And the purpose of the project is simply to add a bedroom and a bathroom on the second floor so that an additional person can stay with the Bernies when they are in the property to help them in their golden years. The plans we've submitted to this board are the same plans that were approved by the Inland Wetlands Commission on December 3, 2020. The Inland Wetlands Commission, which has jurisdiction over Highland Lake and wetlands on the site, obviously concluded that the project did not pose any risk to Highland Lake or to the wetlands on the site. I'd like to offer into evidence, into the record, a copy of the minutes of the Inland Wetlands Commission meeting of November 18, 2020, where the commission accepted the application and found that the activity proposed was not significant in its effect on the lake or the wetlands. And I'd also like to offer into the record a copy of the minutes of the Inland Wetlands Commission meeting of December 3rd, 2020, at which the Bernie's application was approved.
Thank you, sir.
For the record.
And the plans we're asking you to approve tonight are the same plans which were before this board in December of 2020, and this board denied the special exception at that time. We're asking you to reconsider that decision and grant the current application on the basis that the application satisfies all of the requirements and all of the standards in subsection C and J of section Roman numeral 3 of the regulations. The location of the building is already established to be a legally non-conforming location. The non-conformities of the existing structure will not be increased in any way by this project, and the proposed partial second story will comply with the building height requirements in the zoning regulations for the HL district. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Bowe, architect on the project, who will provide more detail.
Michael Bowe. I want to start out by saying this is probably the smallest project I've ever worked on. I've done bigger projects, like I did Joan Rivers' house here. So, basically what we have is we have the first floor of the house, which is here. What's pochade is what we're building is new construction. And the second floor, and this being an existing roof over the first floor. So this is basically the bedroom and a bathroom and a closet on the second floor, 267 square feet. This is the south elevation, which would be facing towards the lake. I believe you have these plans of these in front of you as well. And you can see that we're 11 foot 6.5 inches to the finished floor, to the ridge on the front of the house. And from the grade to the midpoint of the shed, or the dormer, is 20 feet 3 5/8. Code allows us to go to 30 feet. We've tried to hold the building down as much as possible. We'll still give us headroom at that second floor for a bedroom. By providing the shed dormers. This would be the elevation that's facing back towards Wakefield Boulevard. So when you're coming down the hill, you can see this, and I think in the little renderings that you've been provided, it basically has a double French door, a little bracketed shed roof over the doors, and beyond is this small front building. This would be the east elevation, the main entry into the house. The bedroom is located in the back of the house on the first floor, and 3 windows on the second floor, which would be a relight back into the bedroom. And then this is that, again, is that first floor area, which is out over the lake, which is, we're building, everything that we're doing is on land. Nothing extends into the lake. In the west elevation, is basically the same thing, the 2-story addition. This is gonna remain 1 story in that area, and then the front. So there's an area in here that's gonna be a low slope roof between the two. Now, you also have photos of this, I believe, in your files. This is a site plan, or a site photo. This is the Burnings house here. The area in the front is what's over the water. Everything we're building is back in here, 2-story. This is 410. You can see the views are out this way. And this is 408, the views are out this way. Now, both of those houses are also 2-story houses. So we're, and like many of the houses on the lake, these are taken from the deck of the Burnings house of Lakes. There's a 3-story here. There's a 3-story here. This is 410, 2-story house. 408, again, a 2-story house. See where they're situated in this one photo, where their orientation here is out this way, and they're set back, so anything that we're building in here is not really blocking visions. This is what's been built to this point. This is where we'll be taking up. Again, this is like 15 by 20. If you can imagine that, that's about from behind Mark to this wall, from here to there. So it's not a big addition.
So the original structure was demoed already,
Yes.
and you are just, at this point, deciding whether you're gonna replace it or go with 2 stories, depending on what happens here.
That's why we're here.
And part of it has already been built. The project over the lake has already been built.
That was built and permitted.
Part over the lake was
Yeah.
just renovated a few years
Yeah.
ago. Right. The whole discussion's been on what happens behind it.
Back, that's right. And again, you've got this rendering that shows it from the lake, what it would look like. You've got a rendering that shows it from the east, what it would look like. This is a rendering coming down from again, this is another way from out on the water, looking back towards the house.
I'd just like to ask Cam, all those renderings are in the record at this point, is that correct?
Yes.
Have they?
Yeah, those are, I recognize them all as being in our packet, just in a smaller
I think the
format.
only thing that I don't have here, that you have in your record, is there's one additional photo of a number of houses.
Yes,
which
Actually,
shows-
we have that as well.
we have that.
Yeah, it's in your record, I didn't have it up here.
Yeah.
So, those are the, kind of the parameters of the project, of what we're doing. And the deck that's in the outside was all permitted before.
Hey, Mark, just for clarity, on the part that they've torn down and they have the foundation in place for, that's simply permitting. That didn't go before, other than wetlands potentially, that didn't go before anybody, right?
Right.
That's replacing what was there. You can issue permits for that.
Yeah. Mike, if you go to the east elevation and also the two roofs over the doors,
Yes,
those would need variances.
those would be variances.
Yep.
What size are they? Do you know what size you have depicted?
For those roofs,
Yeah, those overhangs.
basically they're a 3-foot overhang, and one of them is probably 8 feet long.
8 feet, yeah, and they're, what'd you say, they're allowed 3 by 3?
You're allowed, the only thing you're allowed within the setbacks is a required, basically, the minimum size for a door. So 3 foot by 3 foot is all that you're allowed.
Okay.
So if
Ah,
those two overhangs, either you need a variance or you can't have them.
These two.
That wouldn't affect
This
this
was-
application.
Well, the,
He just wouldn't be able to get a permit, a building permit for those overhangs.
well, no, because the application, the motion says as per drawing submitted. So what they would say is that to get rid of them. And then, yeah, in other words, they could approve it,
With a
and just say
condition.
without the overhang, the roof, the door, overhangs over the doors, is what it would be. Yeah, one school put a kibosh to the whole thing.
Would that, over French Street, you would be allowed a 6 by 3 then?
Nope.
Mike, the total height of the building, if the second story is added, will be under the 30-foot limit for the HL zone, right?
That's correct.
quite a bit.
By quite a bit, right. Okay, I don't have any other questions. Any questions?
I had a couple of questions. I do remember this case was here before, I think, like you mentioned, this, in December, and I forgot, but there was another neighbor that came down here, and he mentioned that he thought that the, structure was going to block his view.
Yes.
There's a picture of his house, you had it in here.
It's his house right there, that's
Okay. Right, do you know, what was his name? Do you remember what his name was?
Mr. Mandel.
Mandel.
He's here, I think.
Is he here tonight? Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't. All right, and the other thing that I was concerned about is, being on the lake for many years, this may not have been a bad idea, but it's right where the Narrows is. And the Narrows,
Roads are over here.
I know where the Narrows is. It's very close to the Narrows, and you're gonna always have people in the boat looking over to somebody else's house, and with the construction and what's going on over there, and I just have a hard time swallowing this addition again. For those two reasons, blocking somebody else's view and building it super close to the Narrows.
Where are we blocking the view? That's my question.
You would be biking, I think the neighbor's view over there. when I went down to look at it, from his house.
Could I address that issue?
Sure.
On the view issue, since it's come up now, I was gonna address it a little later.
Okay.
But I'm gonna say some things that are probably gonna be a surprise, but,
Sure.
I need to say. There are 3 volumes of books called the Connecticut Practice Series, which are entitled Land Use, Law, and Practice by Robert Fuller. You're probably familiar with those, you've probably heard about those before. Those volumes are considered by lawyers and judges to be the Bible of land use practice in Connecticut. In volume 9, section 448, at page 186, Fuller states, in Connecticut, property owners have no right to an unobstructed view from structures built on adjacent property. The only exception to this is where there is an express statutory provision or there is a contract or restrictive covenant protecting the private right to a view or vista. In the present case, there's no express statute and no contract imposing a restrictive covenant protecting anybody's private rights to a view or vista in favor of the neighbors of the Burnings. There's also a recent Connecticut Supreme Court case from 2017 that states that it is, quote, established Connecticut law that property owners have no right to an unobstructed view from structures built on adjacent property. The only exception to this is where there is an express statutory provision or contract or restrictive covenant protecting the private right to a view or vista. That case is Mayor versus Historic District Commission of the Town of Groton, 325 Connecticut, 765, at page 784, footnote 13. That's a 2017 case. So it's absolutely clear that the bottom line of the view issue is that Burnings neighbors have no right to an unobstructed view of Highland Lake or anything else. Views simply cannot be considered by this board in ruling on this application or denying the application. It's just not legal.
Would you like to get back to where you were originally going?
Sure, I'd like to introduce Mark Beecher, the contractor on the project. Mark, would you explain how you've done the work to this point, gotten the proper permits to do all the steps that you have to do?
Yeah, so I've been with you guys for a lot of time, well, and we went through every step to make sure everything we did was to good building, construction practice, and we went through the proper channels all the time. And the same is done on this one, and we were a bit taken aback that it was denied because we were doing that in the same vein we've done, as we always had in the past. And respectfully to the neighbors on both sides, I've met and wonderful people, and we do take into consideration, even though the view may not be an issue, like, or we have a feeling toward those people that we want to be kind to them. So we looked at that, and we looked at the property lines, at what you could see, and the view could be made better if the Bernie's cottage was removed. But that was never talked about, and that's not gonna happen. So, the fact that it's there, you can see it. And the fact that it goes up 8 feet, or it's plus or minus, blocks view of trees and ledge. And as far as from the Narrows, you cannot see that structure because of ledge and trees. So there's no view of that structure from that area. So we just ask that we be able to continue our practice for the Bernies, and gonna do a great job. You can see the rendering show. And I don't think that the neighbors have necessarily seen these, but it's a beautifully done job, and will be. And I think it will work out nicely. And if we drove around the lake and we looked at the other structures on the lake that in recent years been approved, and there's many, many, many structures in approximately the same location to the water that have been approved. So when we were denied the last time,
I think were already submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and these are all structures of, of late, recent years, that are the same thing that we're asking approval for, some two-story, some three-story. And, I don't really have anything more to say, except that we think we're doing the right thing for our customer, and, we'd like to continue. Thank you.
You took those pictures, right?
Yes.
And now I'd like to ask Mrs. Bernie to come up and explain the purpose of the project, the family.
Good evening. I'm Patricia Burney, and I'm married to Robert Burney, 49 years. And we have two sons. My father-in-law bought the property in 1938. And my husband is 82, 16 years older than I am. And he loved the lake. He was born in Torrington, raised in Torrington, lived at the lake during the summer. That was his love. He hadn't been able to go back for a while, but his wishes are to come back. And he would like the family to be able to join him, share memories of his time at the lake, create new memories. We have lots at St. Francis Cemetery. His grandparents are buried there. His parents are buried there. He will be buried there, and I will too. I like to be able to come back and have my family join me so we can visit him there. This place means a lot to us, and we appreciate and thank you for taking the time to listen to what we have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burney.
Next, I'd like to make some brief comments about the factors this board is required to consider in deciding this application. Section 3J4 of the regulation states, in considering any application for a special permit, the commission shall evaluate the merit of the application with respect to the following factors. So that section states the factors the board is required to apply. And it's also important to note, again, that those factors can be applied only to the second floor, only to the proposed second story of the building, not to the first floor, because the first floor does not need a special exception. Now, to run through quickly those considerations that are listed in the regulation, the first one is a suitable location for the use. In looking at this factor, it's important to recognize that special permits can apply to all kinds of large projects involving new construction. And the issue for those situations is whether you can plunk down a large project into a particular zone. That's not what we have in this situation. We have an already established non-conforming structure. The residential use of this structure is permitted in the Highland Lake zone. So it's conclusively presumed under the case law to be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the area. The intensity of the operations on the site will be no different if the second floor is added. It'll simply be the Bernie's little family using the property. Next factor is appropriate improvements. Again, it's necessary to keep in mind that the only factor in the improvements is the second floor. The second story, as you can see from the design, will be an attractive building, and it's suitable in relation to the site and the rest of the building and the rest of the neighborhood. Next factor is suitable transportation conditions. Obviously, the addition to the second story will not affect transportation in the area at all. Next factor is adequate public utilities, same story. In addition to the second floor of the building will not affect public utilities, water, sewage, anything like that. Adequate public services, in addition to the second story, will not affect accessibility to fire apparatus or anything like that. Accessibility is not great now and won't be affected by the addition to the second story. Environmental protection and site will be maintained long-term, probably better than the situation that's existed in the past. The purposes of the zoning regulations will not be negatively affected by the proposed second story. It's a residential use, it's a permitted use, and nothing's gonna change on that. It'll be consistent with the plan of conservation and development. The addition of the proposed second story is allowed by the zoning regulations. The zoning regulations are part of the plan of conservation and development. And the regulations also permit the addition of the second story with a special permit. So the plan of conservation and development is satisfied. And subsection C of section 3J of the regulations has some additional factors to be considered for residential districts. The addition of the second story will have no impact whatsoever on the existing and future residential character of the neighborhood. The neighborhood will be adequately protected by the zoning regulations. Adequate safeguards have been taken to protect adjacent property and the neighborhood in general. What protects the adjacent property is the height limit regulations in the HL zone. Those are complied with. The proposed second story will have no effect on traffic circulation. The design and the overall physical appearance of the completed building will be better than it's been for years in the past. It will be in general harmony with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. There are numerous structures, as you've heard, around Highland Lake that have second floors, and some of those structures are massive compared to this little building the Burning Man built. Adequate safeguards have been taken to protect the natural environment. The Inland Wetlands Commission is taking care of that. And the addition of the proposed second story will not affect in any way the availability of public services to the property. So for this part of our presentation, I'd just like to conclude by, again, I hate to be repetitive, but it's very important. The only feature of the project that needs a special exception is the addition of 276 square feet, a partial second story. It's a minuscule project compared to many of the things that go on in Highland Lake. All the Burries are asking for is an additional bedroom and bath, so that their children can be at the cottage with them in their older age, to give them some assistance when they need it. There simply is no legitimate reason for the application to be denied. If you go through all the standards and the regulations, they're all satisfied. So we would respectfully request that the application be granted, and I just reserve my right to respond to any comments that are brought up by neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
So I
Yes,
guess
sir.
certainly the concern that I've had in the previous application attempts is you have one of the few pieces of property on the lake where you can build virtually anything you wanted, but not less than a foot off the property line. And that's what's been our challenge in the previous applications, is you could construct something in the center of this property that could be 2 stories high and as virtually probably as big as you want within the guidelines. Yet you want to put a second story less than a foot off the neighbor's property line. Our problem is, or at least my problem in this application has been that. There's also an opportunity for this to be approved and potentially you bringing us an application in the future for another structure on the property and call this a boathouse. So, I think we try to pride ourselves in being reasonable here, but you've got so much land to build on and you want to put it less than a foot off the neighbor's property. And I think as you cited all the regulations to us, we look at the harmony of the neighborhood and we look at protecting the adjacent owners. And I think, we have to really understand why we can't just build something that's not within these side yard setbacks, particularly less than a foot.
Well, I think what you're saying is that although the Beechers have a legal right to a non-conforming structure in the location that it's in, you prefer to have it somewhere else. I don't think that's a valid reason to deny a special exception. You have to apply the regulations.
Except that the zoning's for 1 acre, which they have.
Yeah, well, it would still need the special permits, and again, you know, I have to repeat, they have a right to this location. That's the conundrum that you get with non-conforming uses. It's not preferred, you don't necessarily like it, but that's what the law is, and they have an absolute right to that location, because it was there before zoning regulations were adopted. It's actually a constitutional right, because if you deny them that right, you're denying them the right to their property without due process of law. It's probably even an ex post facto law, which, you know, makes something illegal after the fact. There's case law that they have a constitutional right to a non-conforming use. I know it's a problem, but that's what the law is.
I mean, I think, you know, clearly they can build what was there again. And the question now is, do we allow it to get larger with a second story? And we've addressed the fact that the side yard setbacks are, I mean, this is the smallest one I think I've seen on the board since I've been here. And this is like the first time they came before us, which was a much larger structure.
Right.
And then they came back adding a second floor to this. And I think as we look at it, and to your point about the regulations, we look at the conformity to the neighborhood, and we look at the protection of the adjacent owners, and, you know, what's reasonable? And what's reasonable when you have an acre of land that's not inches from your neighbor, that you could predominantly do whatever you want?
But the second story, which is the only factor that's the subject of the special permit, has no effect on these things. It has no effect on the setbacks. It has no effect on conformity to the neighborhood. You've seen plenty of photos of multi-story buildings, gargantuan buildings all around the lake. It's consistent with the character of the neighborhood in that respect.
None of those other properties had the land option. Those other structures that you referred to that are tall buildings on and close within the setbacks didn't have extra land to work with. And that's why the board, I think, has struggled with this application for the first time, or in December. It's putting it as close as it is. Anyway, that's my questions and comments on.
Again, well, what you're really saying by that point is you don't want the Bernies to have their non-conforming use, and that's just not appropriate.
Mark?
I get it. Mike, you know the building codes, you can't have windows on that side that's within a foot of the property line? There's gotta be a rated wall? Okay, but you're showing windows and doors, windows and doors.
I can comment on that as well. The Lees also wrote a letter that were concerned about, they expressed concern about windows, and the Bernies are willing to make some changes to accommodate the Lees' concerns. Just wanted to put that out there.
Well, no, this is part of the building code, there's gotta be a rated wall and,
Yeah.
okay, I just wanted to make sure, cause I saw it, I was just thinking about the pictures and everything.
Now, that's only on the second floor, correct?
No,
This is the first floor.
first floor too.
All right.
Anything within 3 to 5 feet of a property line cannot have any windows or doors, and
Okay,
has to be fire rated.
okay.
I also have an issue with the setback, and I've been down on that piece of property, and you have probably like a good acre with nothing on it, and I have a hard time wrapping my head around why you can't build a nice, large house over there, and why we're just focusing on something very small that's right in the narrows of Highland Lake.
I guess my response is the same as what I've already said.
Right.
They have a right to do it. It's not a conforming location. They have a legal right to do it. It can't be denied. It can't be denied because it would be preferable for them to build in another spot on the site. It can't be denied.
But the side yard setback is, to me, it's just too close, so, on that side over there.
Yeah.
So, to your point,
Yes.
a second story doesn't make it worse.
I understand it, but we're going from non-conforming to more non-conforming.
It doesn't make it more non-conforming because we're not moving it closer.
Right, I understand, but
It's
just
exactly
adding
the same.
adding
And
more.
the narrows, I have
disagree with you,
Well, you
from
you
my
get it
view,
your vote.
yes.
There's nothing to do with it. Thank you.
All right, nothing further from the board. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to this application?
Karen Lee, 408 East Wakefield Boulevard. My family's been at that property for over 45 years. You actually have 2 letters from our family, I guess, in your packet. That pretty much states our concerns and comments. If you'd like, you can either read them in or I can put them in as well.
Could you just go over them in your own words?
Sure. So the setback is definitely an issue for us. Our property line is, as you've seen from the plans, inches away from that structure. We've been there for over 45 years. The former structure had very minimal windows. I'm happy to hear that they're not allowed to put windows on that side. Our privacy was really our, first and foremost, our main concern with this development. It's effectively for us an observation deck into our property. The way that back half of the building is situated, the only view that they have is of our yard and of our house. It doesn't afford them any view. Personally, the style is not something that we like, but that's a matter of subjective taste. To me, the massing of that structure is inappropriate for being so close to the water's edge. We've enjoyed the Iron Lake community for a number of years, and we're on generation number 3 and hope to continue that in the future. The other issue that we have is the current plans show provisions for replacement of utilities and mechanicals. Within that 35-foot setback, it's really right adjacent to our lawn. It would be our preference not to have a heat pump and a generator so close to us. That contributes to noise pollution for us and our property.
Thank you. Would you like to speak, sir?
Sure. Mark Mandel from 410, so the neighbor on the southern side. I just wanted to state for the record, I agree with some of the comments from the members of the board about sort of our surprise, I guess, that with such a large lot, they would choose to build up on the part that's so close to the lake. I also, when I read the application, was a little concerned, confused. The application sort of says that they're going to tear down the second part and build on top of it, but my understanding from looking at it is it's already torn down. So I just want to make sure that the part they're talking about tearing down in the application is the part that's in the second half, not the part of the water. Maybe that's something as a board you guys can clarify.
You are correct about that.
Okay.
The foundation that we use, so the poured foundation is the footprint of the portion of the previous structure that was torn down, and the part that sits over the water was renovated year ago or so, something like that.
Yeah.
The foundation is poured where it is because that's the footprint of the grandfathered structure.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just when I read the application for today, that's not what the application says. It says it's going to be torn down. And then lastly, I just want to say something. We're thrilled of the renovation of the front part of the house. It's been a dilapidated structure we've been in the lake for almost 20 years. And it's great that that's been renovated and it's finally not an eyesore. At the same time, we are concerned that continued building on the lake, that close to the lake, of additional structures isn't in the character or harmony that we would expect in the lake neighborhood unless, and I don't want to keep anyone from doing what they have to do unless really that's the only option that they have. I'll also just say when it comes to the view, last time we had this hearing, the Bernie's representative said that it didn't block or obscure, interfere with our view, and I just responded that it does. And it does interfere come to some, positive resolution on this. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this application from the public? Hearing none, the last word is for you.
Thank you. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, I guess, but, I understand the concerns about the setback and the location, but, back to the non-conforming structure regulations and law, they have a legal right to that location, even though it may not be the preferred location or the best location on the site. Their application can't be denied because of that location. They have a right to. The only concern again is the second floor on the part of the building farthest from the lake. Complies with the height requirements for the zone, complies with all the other requirements, all the other standards in the regulation. There's just no, there is no factor or standard in the regulations that can be used to deny the application.
Anything more, sir?
No.
Okay. Well, with that, we will close the public hearing on application ZBA 215269.
A motion to grant a special exception for application number 21-5269 to demolish existing one-story residence and rebuild with a partial second story per the drawings submitted for the property located at 408 East Wakefield Boulevard. For the purpose of this motion, Mark, do we need to amend for those overhangs in the drawings?
As a condition, you'll make it, what you do is when you do the thing, you put it as a condition.
But
The
you
board
can,
of-
you can do it now.
You can do it now,
You
or-
can talk about conditions now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with an amendment to this motion to approve without the overhangs over the two exterior doors on the east and south side of the building, do I have that correct? Thank you.
Just say with two, what about with the two overhangs?
So the motion would be to approve with the elimination of those two overhangs over the doors.
Can I respond to that or not?
No, that doesn't make sense.
A second.
Oh.
Go
ahead.
Mr. Drew will second. Any discussion? Or have we all talked ourselves blue on this one?
You would want to discuss, you should discuss what you're thinking in terms of either favoring or denying. You'd want to discuss that and have
Well-
that on the record.
Okay, I do remember this coming up vaguely back in December. Can you refresh my memory, what was the reason it was denied back then?
I think we looked at, if I remember, we looked at the characteristic of the neighborhood, avoiding building more, and in part of that, not building larger structures right on the water, and of course, the side yard setback, and it just seemed to be unreasonable, given the other options that they had.
It was also a much larger.
No, this project was,
Oh,
same.
this was the same.
This was the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, talking about the regulations, it's A, protecting the adjacent property owners. We have two adjacent property owners that object to the motion,
Right.
to the project. And is it within the harmony of the development as Highland Lake continues in that district? Is it the, and actually to John's point, is it the precedence we want to set, building right on the water and right on property lines? Now, they can build their first story and replace what was there. They don't need us for that.
Okay. But that all being said, what legal reason would we have as a board to deny this? But without, I understand what the concerns are of the neighborhood, of the, excuse me, of the
So according to
Not
regulations,
not wanting to build larger, more close to the water.
so
Okay.
for the residential districts,
Finishing what I was saying too, wetlands approve this, correct? So, go ahead.
okay, so we have to consider, as the attorney read to us, we have to consider all of these factors when looking at a residential exception. One, the existing and future character of the neighborhood in which the special permit is to be located will be adequately protected. So that gives us some leeway to talk about certainly the side yard setback and two-story structures being that close to the water. I think that certainly falls within the character and the existing and future character of the neighborhood. Number two, the adequate safeguards have been taken to protect the adjacent property and the neighborhood in general. Again, I think the two things that we have concerns about apply to that. Traffic circulation, I don't see it to be a traffic issue, so we don't have to worry about that one. And the basic design of the proposed use for structures, the relationship between the structures and the land, and the overall physical appearance of the proposed use of the structures will be in general harmony with the character of the neighborhood surrounding and will not serve to blight or detract from abutting residences or other property. One could argue that for the Lees, having that structure being larger, literally inches off the property line, might have a negative effect. I mean, these are the factors that I'm looking at. E is the adequate safeguards have been taken to protect the natural environment. I guess wetlands does that job for us. And then finally, that all required public services will be reasonably available, which obviously is not a problem. So it really stands to, when considering all of these, are we protecting the adjacent property in the neighborhood in general? Are we looking at the basic design of the proposed structure and the relationship and the overall physical appearances will be in general harmony with the character of the neighborhood surrounding and will not serve to blight or detract from abutting residences or other property?
And that is going on legally, what they can do on their property, right?
That is what we can consider as the special exception.
Factors that we're
Time
supposed
for me to wake up.
Okay.
I mean, listen, Aubrey, if you're in favor, give us some thoughts, man.
Well, I mean, just, personally, I am a person in favor, strictly, if it's your property, okay, you should be able to build what you want on that property. Okay, if you have the legal right to do so. I understand also the concerns that, you would think anyone would want to consider, what the concerns, what the neighbors would be. The concerns, and I think they've made a couple, revisions of this too, if I'm not mistaken as well too, as far as the windows and all that other stuff too. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm satisfying satisfying you as far as what I'm saying.
No, and listen, we're gonna vote on this and we all have our opinions, but, I agree. I want to give, whenever possible, people the right to do what they wanna do.
I'm listening to, I'm listening to the arguments of people who've lived on the property for generations. I'm listening to neighbors who've also lived for generations, and they all want to, again, have families come out. And again, this comes to what I've raised earlier too. I mean, we have families that are expanding or that just want to continue to enjoy Highland Lake or enjoy living on property out there, passing it down. That's kind of what I'm looking at as well too. I don't live on the lake, no. So, but I'm just saying, but I am a property owner too. And I like to think that I would, I can pretty much, within the legal realms, be able to build or add what I would like to, again, within the legal, on my property here. As I would want to have anyone else enjoy that too. That's just what I think.
For me, this would be, if they didn't have all the extra land, if they had a third of an acre and they were here, hey, we want to put a second floor on it, it's the only way we can expand our house, I think we'd probably approve it easily.
Okay,
Uh,
I understand.
Yeah.
I'll back off on that then.
Yeah.
But I mean,
In my view, I don't think we have the only thing that we can do legally, as I see it, would be to, we either grant it or we deny it and they build a single-story structure as his grandfather.
That's correct.
I don't think that we have any appropriate levers to force people to build where we want them to. The way to deal with, if there are issues with height on the lake and congestion on the lake, or in terms of proximity and all of the old grandfather stuff, that has to be taken up, with P&Z. And, if we want to try to change all of that, then that's another revision of the zoning regs. But I don't see that, for all that, yes, sure, build a bigger house, but I don't think that we can force that.
We can't force them to move it. We can only decide right now whether they can have a second story or not. That's all we can decide.
Exactly. And I personally don't find that the possession of all of that extra land has any relevance to whether the second story is approved or not. Myself. I don't see this as being a hill to die on issues of overdevelopment of the lake.
Within a foot?
It's grandfathered. I mean, we don't have any, we can't do anything about that. The town could offer to buy the property and tear it down. But, we can't, I don't think we can't.
we have to consider, I mean, while considering the right, the feelings of everybody involved, we have to consider the rights of the property owners, and that would be on any person's property. If a neighbor wanted to do something that this applicant didn't like, we would have to, I would think we would have to, appreciate, their rights and, honor their rights to do the same thing as well too. I'm just looking, it is, please understand too, that this is, I understand it is a very difficult, thing we're in here, we're facing. We're trying to make we cannot make everybody happy in this here too. But what we have here is a property owner who, they have a building, they want to add to it, okay? Yes, they have more land to it. There is no legal reason, I don't think, that we have to deny them that, based on what the arguments and state statute says, unless I'm mistaken.
Mark, do you have any comment about the legal parts of this?
Legal parts, it's like you said, they have to be able to be rebuilt what's there. Our regulations say to get the expansion, we have to issue, they gotta do it by a special exception. So that means that the commission has the right to deny that second floor but they have the right to rebuild what's there, as long as they're not expanding it.
You weigh the application based on the criteria put forth in the regulations.
Right.
Right, which we've talked
Which,
about.
We're trying to do.
You have to remember that the ZBA comes up with the final decision. We take all of this into consideration, and we hear everybody's point, everybody's view, and then it's up to us to decide, and we try to make the best decision that we can.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion?
Ron?
I just have a hard time, having lived at the lake for 40 years and being away for 8 years and coming back. Nothing has changed. It's the same arguments today as it was 20 years ago, and it's going to continue to be that way. I have a hard time telling someone that they cannot do what they want to do with their property as long as they stay within the rules and regulations. I don't have to like the 1-foot side yard requirement that is there, but it is their right to build upon that based on being grandfathered in. There are arguments for both sides. I understand that. But I think it is their right to do what they are legally capable of doing with their property. That's all.
Very good.
Very good.
Are we ready to take a vote?
As ready as we'll ever be.
I expect so. All right, now, at this point, we've already built in the
Did someone
exclusion.
second the motion? Yeah, we put the exclusion in. Did someone second the motion?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Okay, so, all in favor of the motion granting this application, please signify.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? You have your project, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the difficult considerations that you applied tonight.
I was convinced.
And so,
Just want to say, see the architect throw the engineer's plan on the floor?
Yeah, I did that, yeah. You should object to that.
I am now. Thank you, have a good evening.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Well, yeah, it's
No,
There's no way you're gonna win. 2 nights in the 50s. Dr. Birdie was a good man.
You should sign those.
Thank you, Mrs. Bernie.
Good luck.
Oh, my.
Everybody, yeah.
Feels better. All right.
At least I think we gave it good debate.
We did. We actually, that's the most thorough discussion of issues on things that we've had in a very long time.
That's most of spoken meetings.
You go, Aubrey. All right, now, excuse me, I just need to make a comment that, on the following application.
That notices weren't properly provided to the abutting property, so this application will be
Resubmitted.
re-advertised and notices will be provided to the.
Okay, so, for the record, Zoning Board of Appeals -21-5270 for a variance at 404 Wakefield Boulevard. The application was incomplete, people were not notified properly, so
You'll see them at your July meeting.
yeah, it'll be on our July meeting after people are properly noticed.
We don't need to even vote to continue it or anything like that?
Nope, no,
Okay, Perfect.
no.
Perfect.
Is there any old business to discuss?
Not that I can remember.
We have minutes for May 25th, 2021. Is there any correction of fact? Then a motion to approve the minutes is presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
I abstained on that because I wasn't here.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
officially.
Officially abstained.
Yes.
Any correspondence?
You all received an email from me regarding a Freedom of Information training on July 7th.
Something like that.
At 5 o'clock, it'll be live streamed, or, I'm sorry, it'll be recorded and will be available for use. But you might have questions or things of interest, it'll be in this room. I'll probably be sending another reminder, but it's, you always, even if you think you know it all, it's always good to.
No.
I tried.
Who here thinks
I
they know
know,
it all?
I know nothing.
I do.
I tried to move my travel that week and I couldn't, so I cannot make that Thursday night.
So we'll send you a link.
So I'll be absent.
All right. Is there any other business that we need to discuss? Is there any discussion with our zoning enforcement officer?
He's still talking to us.
Yes, he is. And then we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very
I don't care who
kindly.
gets credit for that there.
Not bad. 2 hours and 12 minutes, or 10 minutes, and you don't have to be out in such a white heat.
No, I can go home and enjoy pleasure something and go to work.
You're still on live TV. Just letting you know.
Are we off the air?
I don't think I said anything appropriate at all. so
They're gonna,
I'm sure-
if they're gonna